Welcome back to the Frontier Podcast. You guys have taken a brief hiatus, but we are back with season 2. And season 2 is going to be a little bit different than season 1. We've got almost 200 episodes, which is crazy, of the Frontier Podcast live out in the world. And in those episodes, we interviewed folks in the technology industry at large, so CTOs, VPs of engineering, and we learned about their experiences leading engineering teams. So if that's what you're looking for, definitely go back, listen to those episodes. There's tons of cool nuggets of wisdom in there. But this season is going to be a little bit different. So we're going to pull back the curtain on our business. So Gun.io is a global talent agency focused on software developers. And so this season we'll share how we run that business. We're serving some of the world's most discerning software developers and technology-enabled companies. And we want to share with you kind of our experience doing that over the last 10 years, the troubles that we've run into, the challenges, the things that we've tried, and how we're moving forward this year, kind of in a new season of the business, which we'll talk about soon as well. I'm joined by Teja, obviously. Teja, welcome. Teja's my co-host this season. What are you excited about this season?
Thanks, Faith. Yeah, I'm really excited to give our teammates some shine, the people who are, building the business every day. We get to talk to folks on the sales team, on the engineering team, on the ops team. It'll be cool because I think a lot of like tech media is focused on the sort of myth of the founders and the executive team and about like high flying financial rounds. And that's the shit that gets good press, but it's like not actually the thing that builds businesses. It's like your team, the people every day showing up, leading their teams, and people actually serving customers. So I'm stoked to give them some shine and give some insight into how the business actually operates.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like when I think about our North Star for this podcast, it's like the opposite of a Twitter thread. Like so often when I'm looking for answers or advice or insight into how other folks have thought about certain problems that we have too, the only thing available are like these Twitter threads that, are just completely unhelpful. And obviously are telling that story for a reason. And so I'm hoping that the stories that we share this season will be a little bit more, a little bit more genuine and helpful to folks. Specifically, if you're listening and you're a leader at a company that's oriented towards growth, small to medium size, you're thinking about similar problems as us, I think we'll have some really helpful insight for you, at least sharing, what we've tried and what we've learned. And definitely excited to talk to the team as well. Teja mentioned, we've got all kinds of folks here behind the scenes running the show. And I think I'm not alone in my curiosity around what other people do, especially those who might share a title or a purpose with me. So I'm really excited to interview those teammates, get a sense of what it is they think about every day, what success looks like for them, and how maybe others in the industry can learn from them as well. I guess to introduce ourselves, Teja, do you want to go first? What is it that you do here?
Sure. So I'm Teja Yenamandra. I'm CEO and co-founder of Gun.io. I would say my job primarily consists of three things. One is making sure that the folks that we serve, developers and companies, are satisfied with what we provide, are happy, and we're actually providing value. The second thing I think that I do is make sure to attract and retain really good people. So recruiting, I think that's my second job. And I think my third job is probably around making sure that the organization is financed to the extent that we can accomplish our mission, which involves, doing the first thing and then doing the second thing. So it's all about, making sure that, if we have a strategy, we have the capital to go execute it. If we want to bring somebody on, or if we have people on, they feel happy and well compensated. So those are the primary things that I do every day.
What do you do when you're not on the clock here? I know you're on the clock always, but
No, I mean, I don't know if that's healthy. I mean, I certainly think about work a lot, but I'm definitely not on the clock always. I don't, I proudly will say that I'm not on the clock always. So when I'm not on the clock, I love training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've grown up training martial arts, so I love doing that. Recently got into like hiking and sort of like more outdoor stuff, like hiking, mountain biking, road biking.
I didn't know you were mountain biking.
I'm yeah, like
That's
I'm
cool.
getting into it. I'm getting into it. I can talk to you more offline about it, but it's sweet. Like yeah, it's more outdoor stuff
Yeah.
because like jujitsu you kind of do in like a dark gym. It's not like super well lit. You know what I mean?
You're not getting any vitamin D in there.
No, yeah, totally. But it's fun. But sometimes you just want to like go and like be by yourself. And so yeah, I've been getting into that. And when I'm not doing either of those things, I'm like a voracious reader. I read a ton. I love reading, not just nonfiction, but fiction. I read a ton of fiction. And so um, I'd say those are my primary hobbies. I
They
think,
seem very well rounded and healthy.
well, a life well lived means that you get joy from a lot of activities, not just one. So
That's
that's it,
right.
you know.
I'm going to put that in the actual quote book of Teja quotes. Obviously I'm the other host. I'm Faith. I've been working here with Teja for 4 years now, actually,
Hmm.
this month, which is crazy.
Yep.
And I spend my days thinking about growth marketing. And so, how are we showing up out in the world? How is that perceived by not just our target audience, but kind of the technology industry at large? And how are we serving that audience? So, just making sure that kind of everything that's forward facing that we're saying, we're actually following up on and making good on once people join the platform. So obviously that includes this podcast as well, which I'm super excited about. And when I'm not here in the home office, I'm an urban farmer, so I plant lots of stuff that fails and I never get to eat. I take care of chickens in the backyard, and I teach cycling classes. So kind of similar to Tasia, spending a lot of time outside, trying to get some movement in when I can, keeping my very lazy dog happy. So.
That's yeah, and you also teach cycling. That's pretty rad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very fun. It's a great stress reliever. It's like a very different headspace. But I'm learning that all of the like alternate kind of like passions and activities that we do end up feeding each other, right? Like I'm a better professional here because of the things that I do and think about when I'm teaching a cycling class and vice versa. So it's always, when we are doing an interview process with new employees, we always make a point to ask, like, talk to us about your whole person. Like, what is it that makes you kind of tick? Because I think that tells us a lot about, what kind of value they'll add to the team.
Yeah, totally. I find that to be the case with jujitsu like a lot because you're in really uncomfortable situations. Like, I weigh like 100 and I don't know, 50 pounds, 160 pounds. But if I have like a 200-pound dude sitting on my chest or like riding my sternum
It's like
within,
actually uncomfortable.
yeah, it sucks. And then like you're in that situation and you kind of are like, okay, fuck, I fucked up like 10 steps ago, but now I have to kind of figure out like how to get out of this while you're like in really big discomfort. And so, yeah, I feel like that this teaches you a lot about um, handling stress well and things like that. So, yeah, and I'm sure it's
Right.
like it's very similar to I mean, cycling is very tough mentally. It's like a very tough thing. It's very painful, and like just needing to push through that is like
Yeah.
takes a lot.
Yeah. It's very good for your lungs, though. So if you are listening and you want a great lung activity, try cycling while yelling at the same time.
That's true.
All right, well, let's get into it, Tasia. We're going to get started with our first episode, which you and I recorded a couple of days ago, where we talk about the foundations of the business, how Gun.io got founded. And I think that's going to set up this season really well so people really understand what it is we do, the different iterations of the business, kind of how we've changed and pivoted over the years, and where we find ourselves today, which is like a really exciting kind of new chapter in the business and what we're looking forward to and what challenges we're looking to take on. So let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Cool. Teja, welcome to the Frontier Podcast.
Oh, I'm so excited. Do I have to apologize for my background here? We just moved into a new house and I haven't set up anything for like the last 2 months.
No, it looks great.
Okay.
Yeah, nice and clean. It looks Spartan, which I think is what people expect out of a CEO. Teja, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell the fans a little bit about the man behind the screen.
So my name's Teja Yenamandra. I'm CEO and founder of Gun.io. I started this business with a good friend of mine, Rich Jones, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, 2013. We did not set out to build a business. We set out to solve a problem, which was finding devs to help us with our projects and hooking up Rich's friends who were devs with projects. And so that was the humble genesis, humble beginnings of this organization. And I never thought that we'd be here a decade later with a great team, an official podcast with great video and audio quality.
Shout out to Riverside.fm. We love you. You're great.
Shout out.
Based in Nashville. Talk to me a little bit about that. I feel like when I tell people that I work for a technology company, you know, we're a global staffing agency. We focus on really, really high quality software developers, and we get them great jobs, freelance and full time. And when I tell folks what we do, they're like, "And you're based in Nashville? What?" And I think we get that a lot from clients too, who are like, you know, they're consuming whether it's content that we produce or they're looking at our website, and they just kind of assume that we're based in Silicon Valley. Or someplace maybe a little bit more traditional. So talk to me about why we landed in Nashville.
Yeah, totally. Well, you're a New Yorker, and so am I in some ways, right? And so I think we probably view Nashville in similar ways. Why are we in Nashville, or how does it feel to run a company in Nashville? Maybe I can tackle the business side of the question first. It feels pretty normal since we are a fully remote team. You know, I think that's sort of been our direction, but I think the pandemic kind of accelerated that. I mean, we have an office, so technically we're a hybrid team. We have an office. Sometimes people go to it. It's a chill spot, but most of us work from home. You know, we have internal teammates all across the world, Brazil, Thailand, now England, Wyoming, you know, all sorts of places.
Just very, very cool and foreign.
Yes. You know, it feels normal. Like to us, it's like, I think it's like normal. You know, you show up, you talk to your colleagues on Slack, you work from home, we see each other occasionally for the happy hours you organize or things like that. And I think it's great, honestly, you know, and especially because we run a business for remote work. You know, we sort of get how we live. It matters
less probably where we're headquartered in that regard.
Yeah, and like to be able to work and travel and work from whatever city is like pretty sick. So I think quality of life here in Nashville is pretty good, despite the, I don't know, real estate stuff. The affordability still seems pretty good. And it feels normal to run a software company here.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I remember you saying that when we launched, we went through, there's a local Nashville accelerator. The Nashville Entrepreneur Center plays a role in our origin story as well.
Yeah, totally. So when we started the business, there was no research into like what's the ideal city for starting a tech company, right? And so I happen to live here in Nashville, and Rich happened to live in Berkeley in California. And we had a third friend of mine, JP, who he was in, call it close to Philly at the time. Actually close to Harrisburg.
Even better.
Which is another city in PA. Yeah, exactly. And so we were all remote, right? We were like, hey, okay, let's build this business. And I just happened to Google like tech startup Nashville and found the Entrepreneur Center. I don't even remember the exact query, but it was something like how to like who to connect with. That was like
Mm-hmm.
just local business people that were doing the same shit as us. And we went down to the EC. At least I went down to the EC and met some people. But it was never our intention to be like, hey, we want to consciously build a business here. I happened to be located here, and we had our sort of initial team elsewhere, and things kind of happened from there. But it could have just as easily been in Berkeley or in Harrisburg, or where like we weren't thinking about the
Right.
ideal city to
Yeah,
start a
Nashville
business,
wasn't like
right?
chosen off a map. And I feel like today actually that is happening. And so it makes me
Yeah.
feel cool that we were on the frontier of that trend of tech companies moving to Nashville, because now like, Oracle they're doing full analyses to figure out where to move, and they chose Nashville for, probably much more intentional reasons than we did. So
Yeah. Why'd you pick Nashville? I mean, I know there's the personal dimension, but do you have like a professional narrative that you like
yeah,
give in
I
these
mean, it's
sorts of?
pretty straightforward. I went to
Okay.
school. I thought I was going to be an international, like a diplomat living in Northern Africa. And then I was
Right.
recruited by Teach for America. So I taught in our low income schools here in Nashville for 3 years. And with TFA, you get placed in a city or a region. You don't really get to choose. So, and then obviously I stayed because I had family here. But also my choice in Nashville was not intentional. And there have definitely been growing pains as a Yankee trying to get used to the South.
Yeah, totally. Well, I was at a happy hour this past week, and I met some Indian Americans who were from
Mm.
New York, and this might be blasphemous to say, but we were joking. We were like, if there's another new American restaurant opening in the city, we're gonna lose our shit.
Yeah, there's a lot of like Control C, Control V going on with our restaurant options.
Totally, totally. It's all good, decent food, but there's no. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of
Yeah, if you're coming to
variety
Nashville, if you're
of
listening to this and
cuisine.
you're coming to Nashville, email us. We will put you in the right direction. Please do not go to someplace off Broadway. You mentioned at the top of the episode that, when you and Rich got started with Gun.io in its first iteration, your intention wasn't to build a business, right? It was to solve a problem. And so I'm curious, I kind of want to dive in a little bit more into that. Like, what was the problem you identified? How did you first try to solve it? And then maybe like the fast story of what the past 10 years have looked like trying to solve that problem.
One maybe clarifying point. So my mom lives here, and so after moving back from China, I was living with her while starting the business, and I was like, well, I needed to get shoulder surgery. It's easier to do living at your parents' house. I mean, this is like, I don't know how old I was,
Yeah.
like 21, 22 at the time. So that was sort of the reason why I was in Nashville. My mom's a single mom. It's good to be close to her. That was basically the reasoning. Okay, so to this question, which was, okay, so Rich and I, we went to BU in Boston. And I thought to myself, I said, if Zuckerberg, who went to Harvard, can build $1 billion business, surely two BU idiots could build $1 million business. That's honestly what I thought. I was like, surely this can't be that difficult. It'd take us like, I don't know, a couple of years. That was it, but we didn't anticipate building like a full-fledged organization or anything. I mean, I knew we could generate revenues. We had grown up kind of, building things in our own respective ways, but I had never seen like a real business. My Indian immigrants start like a gas station or like some sort of thing. They're not like legitimate huge Fortune 500 companies. Although now a bunch of immigrants run these Fortune 500 companies. That's not kind of what I grew up around.
Yeah, you didn't have like an archetype that you were trying to fit into.
No, certainly not. But I think Rich, because he was in Berkeley and like studied computer science and stuff, unlike me, he was surrounded by like successful models of like what a hyper growth tech startup looks like. and could be like. I think he had a clear sense, hey, we could do this, we could turn this into a real thing. But I think all of us, we were just fixated on like, how do we get to revenue? And the way to get to revenue was like disregard getting an office, disregard any of the trappings of starting a business, and just like go and sell customers.
Do you
And
remember
that's
the
it.
first customer?
Do I?
Come on.
That what? No, I'm sure it's in Stripe. I'm sure the data is in Stripe. I mean, I remember like talking to the CTO of PubNub, which is a big tech company. They may have sold to some other company by now, but I remember just cold calling all these companies on AngelList to get our customers, and PubNub was one of them. And this was back in the day when I think like the world wasn't yet saturated with like outbound sales reps and so much content, being created.
Yeah, we still get traffic from Rich's blog posts, which are like just the most ridiculous, like, or maybe one was written by you about switching to caffeine pills from coffee. Like,
no, that was him. I would never do something like that.
But it was like
drinking
sound
coffee right
SEO
now.
strategy. But it's funny that like so much of this, the strategies that now we think are oversaturated and maybe overused, and we're trying to think outside the box and not use those strategies. 10 years ago, we were on the frontier, and that created a foundation of success that we're still kind of riding on today in many respects. So how did we get the first developers on the platform? I mean, these days we've got tens of thousands of developers with accounts on gun.io. Smaller subset of those folks are personally vetted by our DevRel team, senior software devs who are, professional interviewers, essentially.
Yeah.
Right. And I think,
sick. We
have a different set of challenges today with this kind of model under our feet. But, 10 years ago, when you're cold calling people on AngelList, what devs were you trying to get hired? Like, how did we have a database of folks? Was it kind of Rich's network that we were essentially like white glove agencying into a job? Like, what was the story there?
I mean, there were certainly some of our friends who signed up who were just like devs that we kind of knew from, the real world. But then a lot of devs found us through Hacker News, and that was a big source of not only devs but also companies. And what you found on HN was like a lot of folks were starting companies, were technical and were devs, and maybe needed to supplement their income or just wanted more income, and so they take on freelance projects. And so a lot of initial devs were our friends or people who just found us through HN because we posted a blog or something like that about caffeine pills, let's say, on Hacker News. Or we'd write comments. I mean, I remember this actually was like really motivating, because at this point we had just like made our website and like we're connecting people and kind of getting things figured out. And I remember replying to a comment, I think, on some thread. And in your profile, you say what you do. And so some dude was like, hey, I saw that you guys run gun.io. Your site helped me pay for my Jeep Wrangler. And this dude, we had never met. I don't even remember where he lives. But I was like, holy shit, this dude found a project on our site, made money, and now bought a thing that he wanted to buy. Like, that's sick. That was really cool. It's because it's like we're creating economic opportunity just through the internet for these people, and therefore for us. And that was really, I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah. I always tell people, especially I do a lot of our internal hiring here, and when people ask me like what's unique about our team and kind of how we run the business, I always talk about how uniquely motivated you are, Teja, by creating economic opportunity for people around you. And I think that that's really unique and also necessary for someone who's running a global talent agency, right? Like you can't approach this kind of work wanting to just get personally rich and say like F you to everybody else. And so I think that kind of sets you up, obviously, to do really well in this industry. So I'm curious, like, the business has obviously changed a lot over the years. You mentioned this guy found a project on the site and then paid for his Jeep Wrangler, and we didn't even know him. And that is not how our business runs today. It's very different. And so like there's been several iterations. So I'm curious, like if you had to kind of bucket them into epochs, how would you do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've never organized like my thoughts in that way.
Season 1. What did season 1 look like?
Yeah, the tricky thing is figuring out how to like what marks the end of a season and the new season. Yeah, let's work backwards. It's probably easiest. So whatever iteration we're on right now, I think about it like, I mean, Wade joined us. Wade was a dev on the platform. He was, basically up my ass trying to tell us to build a product.
Years before we
and
even
to like run
broke
years
ground
ago
on the app.
Yeah, and we had basically, the initial first version of the business was like a job board app. But what we found is like in order to actually provide and assure and make sure projects go well, there was like a lot of post-hire management that we needed to do, and we just couldn't evolve the product fast enough to handle the things that were important after the hire. So we just were like, fuck it, if we need to provide value, we're going to do that through human beings or whatever way, through off-the-shelf SaaS things, and we kind of let our product languish, And so Wade was like one of the loudest voices, I should say. One of the most persuasive voices to be like, hey, we need to, make this a core part of our strategy again. So whatever the current iteration of the business that we're on, I would say a lot of it started with refocusing on like being a true technology business first and foremost. I'd say that's probably the last couple of years. Previous to that, I think is right when we started working together, when we were sort of more of like a managed services or like staffing company. I mean, okay, you did this exceptional positioning work. How would you position us today?
We are a global talent agency, and we're propped up by custom software that we've built that makes us really, really, really good at doing that.
Yeah, awesome. And so that last part we didn't have probably before this iteration. And then maybe the first iteration, so I guess there's 3 seasons. The first season was like we were a job board.
Right.
So we were a job board. Then we became like a staffing, like a remote dev shop, basically. And now we're a global talent agency run by software.
Teja, I feel like we're on the cusp of a really awesome season of change here. And we'll get into that in our next episode together. But I'm really curious to hear if you were to like look out over the next year, maybe 2 years, what do you think are the biggest changes people can expect to see from gun.io? Or maybe not changes that are going to be tangible like publicly, but ones that like internally on the team we're going to experience.
And I think this might even be a surprise, but one of the things that we're really intent on in the next year or two is to broaden the focus of the business from not just software, but to all types of knowledge work. And so that's really exciting, I think, for us, is to start expanding beyond software development into marketing and sales, sort of branch out into other forms of knowledge work. And that's motivating because, as much as we love software engineering, it's fun to be involved in other parts of the sort of, company building skill set. You know what I mean? So that'll be cool. Should I talk about
you can tease
fundraising?
It. We're going to talk about it in the next episode. Yeah.
Okay. So tease. So there might be an update on fundraising based on when this next thing is released.
Cool. Lots of exciting stuff.
That's it.
All right, Teja. Well, we're going to come back in a couple of days with a full episode on how the last 10 years have gone for us being a bootstrap business, but also a business that defaults to profitability. and what it's been like for us these last few months, deciding to take on possibly a round of funding, what that experience has been like in this economy, and kind of the challenges we foresee over the coming months and years. So you guys can find Teja on Twitter. I lead marketing here at gun.io, and we're pretty active on the gun.io Twitter account. You can find us there, and I am always trying to get Teja to write some tweets and get on the platform. So if you want to talk to him, you can find him on Twitter. Thanks for listening to the Frontier Podcast powered by gun.io. We drop 2 episodes per week, so if you like this episode, be sure to subscribe on your platform of choice and come hang out with us again next week and bring all your internet friends. If you have questions or recommendations, just shoot us a Twitter DM at The Frontier Pod, and we'll see you next week.